There's a particular kind of moment that some people know intimately. You're sitting in a room, maybe a dinner table, maybe a work meeting, maybe just a conversation with someone you care about, and you catch something. A flicker in someone's expression before they smile, a slight pause before they answer, a tone that doesn't quite match the words. And you file it away quietly because you've learned that if you mention it, people look at you like you're inventing things, like you're reading too much into it. And maybe you've been told exactly that, more than once, so you stop saying it out loud, but you never stop noticing. There's a word people use for this sometimes: oversensitive, or too analytical, or always reading between the lines. And those words are usually delivered with a kind of gentle exasperation, as if the person saying them is doing you a favor by pointing out that you're doing something unnecessary, something excessive. But here's what almost nobody explains about this, and it's something worth understanding properly. What's actually happening when certain people move through the world this way isn't a personality quirk. It isn't anxiety in disguise, though it can coexist with anxiety. It isn't distrust, though it can look like it from the outside. It's something much more specific, much more fascinating, and far less understood than people give it credit for. Some people's nervous systems are simply wired to process the world at a different depth of resolution. Researchers studying sensory processing sensitivity, a trait identified and extensively studied by psychologist Elaine Aron, found that roughly 15 to 20% of the population shows significantly deeper cognitive processing of environmental and social information. These individuals don't just receive input the way most people do. They process it more completely. They hold it longer. They connect it to more things before they release it. And what's important here isn't just that this is real. It's what that actually looks like in a human life. Because when your nervous system is built to process more, not just sense more, but genuinely think more deeply about what it receives, then the world hands you a constant, unrelenting stream of information that other people simply aren't getting. Not because they're less intelligent, not because they're careless, but because their perceptual filter is set differently. Their nervous system isn't running the same program. This usually starts early. Children who process this way often grow up in environments where their observations weren't exactly welcomed. They noticed when a parent was upset before anyone said anything. They felt the tension in a room before the adults acknowledged it. They sensed the distance in a friendship days before it ended. And for a while, many of them tried to voice these things. But children who consistently point out what others aren't seeing tend to get corrected, not because their perceptions are wrong, but because those perceptions are inconvenient or unverifiable, or simply ahead of where everyone else is. So they learn. They learn to observe quietly. They internalize a kind of private intelligence, a running inner commentary on the world that never fully turns off. And the habit of noticing without speaking becomes so natural that by adulthood, it feels like just the way they are. It's worth being honest about what this isn't. This isn't superior perception. It isn't a superpower dressed up in psychology. People who notice more also carry more stimulation to manage, more emotional information to metabolize, more cognitive weight from an environment that doesn't always quiet down. What looks like a gift from the outside can feel, on the inside, like a nervous system that never fully rests. The same depth of processing that catches the unspoken tension in a room also catches the flicker of a fluorescent light that no one else finds distracting. The same attunement that reads a friend's sadness behind their laughter also makes certain kinds of crowds feel genuinely overwhelming. This is the trade-off that rarely gets acknowledged. Depth of perception is not free. It costs something. And yet there is something that people with this wiring often understand that others spend years trying to develop. They understand that what isn't said is often more important than what is. That behavior is language. That the gap between how someone presents and how they actually feel is one of the most significant data points in any relationship. They understand this not because they studied it, but because they've always been reading it. What's worth sitting with is this: the behavior that society sometimes frames as overthinking or hypersensitivity is, in many cases, actually pattern recognition operating at a register most people never access. The brain is doing something sophisticated. It's doing it quietly, automatically, often without the person even being able to fully explain how they arrived at what they sense. They just know. And then they spend years second-guessing whether they should trust that knowing. You don't have to earn the right to trust your own perception. The fact that others didn't see it doesn't mean you were wrong. It means you were earlier. And if there's one thing worth carrying from this, it's that the trait that made you feel like too much in certain rooms, in certain relationships, in certain versions of your life, is the same trait that allows you to be genuinely present with people, to catch what they don't say, to feel into what they need before they've formed the words. That kind of presence is rare. It's not a flaw that got dressed up in something useful. It was always something real. If this found you somewhere accurate, there may be more worth understanding about how this same depth of processing shapes the way you make decisions, hold relationships, and move through periods of change. The thread continues if you want to follow it.